Zootopia 2 is the long-awaited sequel to that original Zootopia that came out all the way back in 2016. We follow once again Judy Hopps and Nick, who have now become partners in the ZPD. Everything seems to be going just fine. They're working together, solving cases until a mysterious snake appears, unraveling the secrets and history with reptiles in Zootopia. That's all. Pretty much any spoilers, you guys. This will be a spoiler-free review, huh? Oh, you notice something different? My set has been taken over by some reptiles. 4 brothers. I call them the Turtles. Yeah, you would think I would have busted that out when we just had that giant live-action Ninja Turtle news update, but I said, nah, Zootopia. Because I'm a wild card, baby. But alright, enough addressing the elephant in the room, or the turtles, I should say. When it came to Zootopia 2, I did not think it was that long ago when the first Zootopia came out. When I saw it was 2016, and it's almost 10 years in between sequels. How does this happen? I mean, that first Zootopia was a great, fun surprise. It was just such a good idea of anthropomorphic animals living in a city, all unified and together. I remember just being so in awe in the way they set up that world and how like little hamsters could be simultaneously living with big old elephants. The idea of a bunny rabbit wanting to be a police officer solving cases, like that movie was just a big win. And it wasn't just a critical hit, like it was a financial hit. So it's so odd to me that they waited almost 10 years to be like, yep, let's go back to them. My only real fear is we've seen time and time again, sometimes these sequels come out and they let us down. Incredibles 2, for instance. Cars 2. I know that's Pixar and this is Disney animation, but it's a history of sometimes really waiting a long time for a Disney animated movie you loved and you're like, oh, the sequel's gonna be great, and then you watch it and it's like, how did they mess that up? So when looking at Zootopia 2, sitting down and checking it out, luckily, that was not the case. I came out extremely happy with Zootopia 2. I think this is a worthy sequel to that first movie that does a lot to improve on what's already been set up in this world. Starting off with things like I really enjoyed. It is so funny that it's been like 9 years for us, but within this universe, it's been maybe like a year or a couple of months because Judy and Nick are still in the very infancy of their partnership and relationship as police officers. We're going to talk about some of that fanfic in a second. There's been someone out there writing that for 9 years, and they're about to be a little happy watching this movie. But I'm watching the opening of this movie that starts off with just like a great little case that they have to solve. There's some criminal out there. Judy and Nick are put on the case and they're going to do some wild shenanigan to solve it. It like felt very reminiscent to like if I was watching a Beverly Hills Cop sequel, a Rush Hour sequel. The buddy cop element is actually really perfected to where I feel like in this movie, they set up a formula or at least an idea of what the future movies could be that I'd be so down for. It's not just the added fascination of seeing, you know, how they turn like a world that's meant to be all for elephants. How does that look mixed in with a world all for like little rats? That's still a large and fun part of this movie, although I was hoping for a little bit more world exploration. The few worlds we do get introduced to, this one like bio-swampy like area, it had a very New Orleans vibe to it, but just even like the water tubes for how some characters get around the city, having a restaurant completely submerged in water, walruses as transportation units, all of that was done really well. If anything, the thing I think it kind of even does better that I want to know if you guys caught this too, the humor and the gags in Zootopia 2 had me laughing. It's not just that the movie is funny or has a lot of clever humor. There's a lot of like just visual jokes that are kind of like references to our outside. A lot of Disney movie references. I don't want to give too many of them away, but a lot of the things some animals do in here copy like another popular Disney animal movie that is in Zootopia. Like one in particular that I don't think this spoils the joke, but there is a Pixar movie reference in this one, and when that popped up, I was laughing so hard. I was like, oh, they did the thing. And there's so many great visual jokes like that sprinkled throughout. It just brings such an entertaining time to the movie because it's paired up with a great mystery. This mystery of this random snake that is voiced by Ki Kwong, Gary the Snake. He's a fugitive from the law. Judy and Nick are on his tail, and they uncover secrets about the history of Zootopia, and that kind of world building and expansion of the lore I thought was actually a welcomed addition conversation. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like it took too much away. It added intrigue into the Zootopia land. It even made me so surprised that, like, oh man, if I go back and watch the first Zootopia, am I really not going to see any reptiles, no turtles, no lizards? Like, they're all just gone. It even made me watch this movie going, dang, then what other animals are not present? And I thought of it, and boy, won't you know, there's the post-credit scene. I know, maybe talking a little early for post-credit scenes. Not giving anything away, but there is one at the end of this movie, so stay for it. But I also like the way the mystery was played out, because I think it was very obvious from the get-go, and even the way things are being set up from the marketing, like the snakes aren't really the bad guys. There's more to that story, and you're gonna see that unfold. That's then where the Linksley family comes in, voiced by an actual family, Macaulay Culkin and Brenda Song. I found that just kind of funny that real-life couple plays the family couple in the movie. But then along with Andy Samberg, are this really rich family that has this important history with the birth of Zootopia. And again, that mystery and aspect that we saw unfold, I liken it more to like a buddy cop movie that you'd watch in the 80s or 90s. You know, even jumping off that point, the thing I think that makes a buddy cop movie really work is the dynamic of the two main characters. And this is where there is going to be a lot of discourse about Judy and Nick after watching this movie, because I was watching it kind of having my own fan fiction in my head going, am I sensing some like chemistry here? It has been no secret that there is some really weird parts of the internet. I'm not saying I've ever visited. Don't check my browser history, but there are some weird people that get all up into the Zootopia world. But all I'm saying is ever since the first movie, there's been a large group of people that like really see Judy and Nick as this like love relationship. I honestly don't see it at all in the first movie. They honestly just feel like two people that help each other out and solve a case. In this movie, okay, it is going to be harder to argue. I still think you could very much just say, no, they're still obviously just friends and they're being really close as buddy and cop. But there are a few moments in there that make me wonder, are they actually building to that? Is that like something we're gonna get to in an eventual movie? Yeah, I'm bringing all this up because I think the Judy and Nick dynamic was like one of my favorite parts of this film, and I'm just wanting to separate that from the possible like romance they want to explore, because my enjoyment of their dynamic didn't come from like a romance factor. It came from the idea that was built and set up in the first movie. It's like they're enemies by nature. It's a bunny and a fox. One is supposed to eventually eat the other one. And although at first it sounds like we're just retreading their arc or friend development from the first movie, they tackle it in such a different way that I thought worked really well. And as an audience member, it like drew you closer to them as a partnership trying to solve this crime. And all of that stuff was so important because the movie at the end has a lot of heart. There's some things that happen in the third act that are really built up so well. And I'm not going to say it gets dark because we've seen a handful of Disney movies that sometimes tiptoe in the dark, but it does get to those darker moments where I was like, it's kind of cool what we're seeing happen here. But it is an emotional, sentimental moment that is so felt because of how well they've treated these two characters. And so that's why I was bringing up, there's going to be a lot of discourse because I'm still leaning on the fact that no, it's just a platonic friend partnership kind of relationship. But if you're someone that wants to ship Judy and Nick, there's going to be a lot of evidence in this movie to help you out. As well as another thing I obviously don't want to focus in too much on, but it's unavoidable. I mean, there's obvious allegories in a world of different animals trying to live in harmony. And while I understand some people get sick of messaging in movies, I think this was done in a subtle enough way where the very relevant messages in this movie are handled with care and taste. And if you complain about that, just know every movie's got a message. To me, it's always just more about how forced sometimes that message feels or just how over the head they bash you with it. Because like Running Man, I felt could have been so enjoyable, but that was one thing that movie did bad. Is it just kept hammering in the same repetitive message that it would take away from its entertainment value, and things like that I think don't happen with Zootopia 2. But with some of that stuff out of the way, jumping to some of the things that I'm like mixed to negative about with this movie, I do think the story and pacing isn't as concrete as the first movie. There's a couple of conveniences or things that just felt too easy for the characters. A lot of that is sometimes references or things being brought back from the first movie that just conveniently work for them in the second movie. I won't go into too much detail, but like when Flash Flash shows up in the story again. It's like, oh, great way to involve a character from the first movie, but it's used in such a way that makes things super convenient and easy for their story and journey. And I felt a lot of those conveniences, especially in the final act when a lot of the emotional and dire stuff is happening. Looking back when the movie ended and thinking back to like the first teaser trailer where they were hinting at so many worlds and lands we'd be exploring, I really think we only got one fully new world, and that was this like New Orleans Bayou swamp world, which, don't get me wrong, loved it and I thought it was cool and it was a nice different look. But man, with like a 9-year wait, you would hope you would see at least like 4 or 3 other lands. I know we got little pieces of other lands, but they weren't fully explored. Yeah, we saw like a little bit of a desert land. There's this ice one and another land that was set up in the mountains, but compared again to that like New Orleans Bayou land, very little exploration of other worlds in Zootopia. So I was like, I kind of would have liked to have seen more. This is going to be a super nitpicky and a weird observation, but I feel like I have to get it off my chest. Well, I think they do a lot of great development more for Judy and even Nick and Judy as a partnership. Part of me felt like there was a small lacking in Nick as a character and his development. The only reason I say that is because there's this one scene that I was hoping was going to be addressed or talked about more, but we remember Nick from the first movie where he was this outlaw, he was this hustler, he was making his way because the world was mean to him, so he's like, I'm going to be mean back and do all these con artisty things to make my way. Well, in this movie, he turns straight and now he's working for the police, he's working with Judy, and he'll use like his street smarts as an advantage when he's a police officer and all that stuff, but there was a scene where we get to see what his apartment looks like, where he lives, and even at one point you get to see his mail and there's like a bunch of past due bills, and I felt like there was maybe a missing arc or something more they were going to explore there, where it's like going straight doesn't pay as well as he'd hope. Not just financially, but it's like he's still struggling. He's the good guy now, but that life isn't as rewarding as it was when he was hustling. And I thought maybe the movie was going to have like a journey of him being like, well, just saving and helping people is the reward and things like that, or something more that never actually just comes around. It's just like a visual you see of like he lives kind of in a crappy place, isn't really paying his bills, and all right, now he's going on this journey. Not a huge or gigantic thing, but it's just something I noticed that I wish was explored more in the movie, because I thought I thought it'd be interesting to see where that goes. But all in all, though, I'm glad it was a worthy sequel. It wasn't anything that was such a letdown. I was super happy with this. And like I said, the post-credit scene makes me even more excited for what they could do next. A lot of interesting and fun possibilities with that idea. And if they keep this interesting buddy cop formula going along, as long as they have a mystery with twists and turns like they do with this one, oh, I would honestly watch 10 Zootopia movies of them just solving crimes in that city. So when it comes to Zootopia 2, I'm going to give action 3.5 stars. There's a lot of great chase sequences, and even when the chases are happening, there's a lot of sight visual gags that had me laughing so hard. Comedy in the movie, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. Like I just mentioned, there was a lot of great gags throughout the movie. It's not just like the jokes or funny slapstick moments, but it's just kind of these animal references to other Disney movies, or even famous lines and quotes that they were able to animalify. I just really like those jokes in the film. Drama in the movie, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. I think they do a good job with like building the lore and exploring the background of Zootopia, the mystery with the reptiles, and further developing the partnership of Nick and Judy in a good way. I do just think, again, I feel like there was just some conveniences, some stuff was a little too easy, but because the movie was so enjoyable, I didn't like harping too much on some of that stuff. And suspense of the movie, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. I really do think towards the end, when some twisty things start happening and things get serious, I was wondering what characters would make it and which ones wouldn't. Looking at 3Cs, I think this will be one that any group could really enjoy. Casuals could go into this, although I'd say for sure watch the first movie just to get acquainted with Zootopia. Critics will find the character development and story solid, so I'm really more going to give it to cinephiles because I think overall it's just an enjoyable, entertaining movie with a lot of heart. So when looking at Zootopia 2, it's not just a movie worth watching in theaters, it's also one worth adding to your personal collection.
That's a keeper. Yes.
Let me know what you guys thought about Zootopia. Like I said, I never really thought about there's groups of animals and things that they haven't shown in this world. One of them will get teased in the post-credit scene. But even then, there's still other groups of animals that I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen those in the Zootopia world. What kind of fun stories could we do with that? Let me know what you guys thought about the sequel, as well as your opinion on the Judy and Nick relationship. You know, that you thinking it's just friendly dynamic, or they're actually going to go with like a love thing and explore that in the third movie? That'd be wild. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.